A maritime war, drug war assisted or partnered by China. Filipino workers stranded in the Middle East. Filipino immigrants in the United States. The Foreign Affairs Department has a lot on its plate. Now, how does the department plan to handle all these? Secretary Perfecto Yasay joins us now live here in the studio. Good evening, Secretary Yasay. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Pia.
Well,
nice to be here.
Thank you, Secretary. Yesterday, you spoke at length about Philippine-China relations during at the Senate hearing. But I'd like to zero in on the two countries' cooperation in the war on drugs. And we understand that there is going to be that very strong cooperation. We understand you invited Ambassador Zhao Jianhua to your office just recently, and you spoke at length about it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you talked about?
Well, we really spoke about how we can move forward and so far as bilateral talks with China is concerned as regarding the South China Sea issue. We're making some strides along that line through quiet diplomacy. We also talk about how we can beef up our joint efforts and cooperation and so forth as the war against illegal drugs are concerned. Even as we speak.
Yes, can you give us more details on that? Let's focus on that, sir.
Yeah, to begin with, the Duterte administration has made a finding that the main source of our drugs or illegal drugs come from China.
Right.
And in fact, as mentioned in earlier reports, that the kingpin, the drug lord, is based in China. This is something that we are following up with the Chinese government, and we are now engaging ourselves in joint efforts and cooperation to make sure that more aggressive action in the war against drug can be taken cooperatively together.
So, Secretary, when you say cooperation, are we talking about sharing intelligence information, for example? Are we talking about conducting joint operations? Are we talking about providing equipment?
We're talking about all of these things as needed insofar as the war against drug is concerned. Even as we speak, as I understand, we have some PNP officials or officers who are in China undertaking some kind of they just came back.
Yeah. Well, that is what Ambassador Zhao had told journalists on Tuesday evening, that there was that PNP contingent. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I do not have the details about this, Pia. I spoke with him on general terms. I also sounded out the idea that if we have because we have an extradition treaty with China, maybe more arrests insofar as drug-related offenses can be made, and the suspects are immediately extradited to the Philippines for immediate prosecution, and so on. So these are the things that we are trying to look into.
Okay, I understand this PNP contingent was there. They looked at equipment, weapons, etc., that China could possibly provide. Is that correct, sir?
I could not confirm that, but I just hear that on the basis of reports. I am not very familiar with the details of this, other than talk about the general framework about beefing up our cooperative efforts.
Mr. Secretary Yasay, we have as yet no ambassadors, at least permanently appointed, to China and the U.S. Is there an update on that? What's going to happen in that regard?
Well,
because the Philippine ambassador to China is ailing right now.
We continue with our search. I have in fact made recommendations to the president on who should be appointed as ambassador to China. I would hope that the president would be able to act on this soon. This is a priority that is giving, and once he has approved the appointment of the person, then the person goes through commission and appointments confirmation.
Can you tell us who this man is?
I cannot as yet tell you. I don't want to.
Well, is he a career officer?
Well, I had made recommendations of some career and a political ambassador appointee. And so he has to choose from this short list of 3 people.
3 people. Yeah. 2 of them a career?
1, 2 of them are career.
1 political.
1 political, that's
Can you tell us which one? Never mind. Okay. Sa US naman?
Yes, we are also looking for possible appointees. I had also sent a short list to the president, again composed also of 2 careers and then 1 political appointee. The search continues. The president would like to expand the possibilities of who could be appointed. But this we're giving priority. Again, whoever gets appointed will go to the same process, and we expect that maybe if the process is completed, including an agreement, where the host country will be agreeing to accept this diplomat concerned, will probably take about towards the November or before the end of the year.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about before the end of the year,
Yeah.
let's go back to China. Can you confirm, Secretary Yasay, that President Duterte will be visiting China within the next 2 months?
I could not confirm that. I know that there are plans for him to visit, but there are certain things that have to be threshed out before the visit can actually take place. We would like to make sure that the visit would be one that is meaningful and fruitful. It will make us move forward insofar as the areas of concerns that we would like to pursue with China is concerned, together with moving forward as well in the settlement of our disputes regarding the China.
Like what
South
needs
China
to be
Sea.
threshed out, sir, so that this
Well,
visit
you'd like to make
happens.
sure that, for instance, the trip of the president and talking with the highest officials of China will not be subject to any conditions. You don't want to start off meeting with certain conditions to be met. That's something that we would like to discuss more thoroughly and clarify with China.
So what you're confirming is that there are already preparations being made for a trip of the president
I
to
wouldn't
China.
say that these are preparations per se, but these are plans. This has been talked about. I am trying to see how the clarifications that we would need insofar as making this trip a reality can be made as soon as possible.
Apart from making sure that, when he, for example, gets to speak to the highest officials of the land, maybe President Xi Jinping, the Premier Li Keqiang,
Yes,
will you also be, will there be logistics to talk about, and how do we go about this given that we have this entire situation?
You mean the subject matter to talk
Yes.
about? Yes. Well, there are other areas of relationship that we would like to push harder in the area of investments, in the area of infrastructure development, in the area of even cultural advancement, educational exchange, people-to-people connectivity. But more importantly, we would also like to see how we can move forward insofar as the South China Sea dispute is concerned.
So the nature of the visit, sir, that would be a working visit or that would be a state visit? What
I
would
would
it
not.
be?
I do not know about the details of this because, as I've said, we have not really gone into the focus on the planning. We were just talking about it, and we are seeing what would be the most ideal dates. But even then, before the actual planning can take place, as I told you, we have to resolve and clarify certain other concerns.
Well, definitely,
and
it's not going to happen this September because that's just already next week. You have the ASEAN, you have the Laos meeting.
Yes.
President Obama will be in China also. It's just a little bit too soon for September,
That's correct,
but perhaps October.
Yeah, I would anticipate that maybe some date later would be more realistic.
But before the end of the year.
Oh yes. This is something that we would like to push through. Yeah.
Okay, and of course you are speaking to Ambassador Zhao about this. I mean, these
Oh
are
yes,
part.
yes. We're talking to him about it.
Yeah, all right. Well, I wished we had more time. There's just a little bit, no, not a little bit, so much more to talk about, but
Yes.
we're going to do an interview with you right after the show, sir. Other issues, like I said in the introduction. But Secretary Yasay, thank you very much for coming to the show.
Thank you very much, Pia. It's really a pleasure.
Salamat po, sir.
Yeah.